Well, today's meeting to order. It's the November 26, 2025 meeting of the Climate Action and Resilience Committee. My name is Brian Mays. I'm City Councilor for St. Vital Ward. I'll be chairing today's meeting. Start with a land and water acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. All right, we do not have any delegations.
We just need a motion to pass the minutes of the meeting held on September 17th.
All right, perhaps Mr. Driver can move that motion. Thank you. All those in favor? Contrary, that's carried. Welcome, committee members. We're at 5 right now, as we have had one departure from the committee, but we should by the next meeting have people reappointed and additional member appointed. So thanks to Laura for her work on that. And I think Becky had a conflict, so she is not with us. And are we dealing with, I guess we don't have a delegation, we just have report from
Correct, just
Ms.
the,
Chatfield, I think, but first go through the other reports. Okay, so we'll just soldier through the rest of the agenda here and then talk building emissions. So first up is the schedule of meetings for 2026. I don't know if people have had a chance to look at that. So the proposal is Jan 22, May 21, September 18, and November 24. Next year being a municipal election year, we had to talk a bit about when to drop that third one in. Council really does shut right down between the final council meeting and election day. So that's maybe a little earlier than we would otherwise have had it. And then November 24th is deliberately after about 3 weeks into the new term of office. So we'll see who's here and see if this committee is still on the books. We'll see, I guess. But until then, we've got the other dates as proposed. Okay. So if there's no opposition to that, do we need a motion to approve that?
Correct.
Do we? All right. Thank you, Zach. Lisa moves to approve that. Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. And verbal report from the chairperson. Yes, thanks to my colleagues, I've been reappointed. That we're in a phase right now where there are a lot of meetings going on and we're slightly off kilter. We've had 2 Riel Community Committee meetings without a council meeting intervening, but I think the org meeting has come and gone in early November. So this committee's still functioning and I've been named as chair again by my colleagues. So pleased to be back, and I think we're building momentum here. Certainly getting more familiar to the other people in council. I am pleased we're going to have a discussion about building emissions reductions that has made its way into the draft budget, but we can probably talk about that, both the operating and the capital sides of that. The short form is IGRS RNG, which I've actually, it's the only reason I can remember this because I can remember that double acronym. So the move at Brady Road landfill to get going on the renewable natural gas. We have been flaring for over a decade. It makes more sense to capture that and put it back into the pipeline. The hope had been council would vote on the proposal by end of 25. That is yet to hit our desks. Hopefully at the start of 26. Because it only takes about 18 months for this to get up and functioning. It's actually quite quick. Private sector modular construction. So, but we have to give it the approval, and then they would have to build it and tie it in with the Trans-Canada natural gas pipeline. So, some of us are still asking questions about that, trying to get that moving. So that will be a significant achievement, I think, for this council. I'd hope to have it running, but at least if we can get it approved. The other matter that this committee is starting to get mentioned in various motions that come before council and come before other committees, which I think is healthy. And one of those motions was one I put forward about getting input from CARC on adaptive reuse of residential and office buildings. This is something that the planning department wants to do. It wants to have it in, we're doing a big zoning overhaul. Guess we just haven't done enough rezoning work. We're doing a big one in 2027. Certainly the director, Hazel Boris, is interested in a discussion about heritage buildings and more forcefully for our group, I think, discussion about reuse of buildings and what can be done to promote that. Because certainly the department itself has said, you know, we'll never meet our climate action goals if we just keep taking the energy incorporated in existing buildings and throwing them into the landfill. So I actually talked about this. I was at a heritage conference in Halifax and talked a bit about this. How we need to just put more weight on reuse of buildings or try to incentivize that rather than just having a lot of tear downs. So that's that. Again, the sequence on these things, I think that comes to council tomorrow, and one would expect that to pass, and then somebody from planning should be here in January. I think that's looking a little askance.
I didn't think that the motion needed to go to council.
Ah,
I think
okay.
that it was directing the public service to take action already.
Okay,
And I think
so
that was-
planning committee would have said, yes, this, we're in support of this, report back to CARC, planning department with a report on adaptive reuse of buildings.
Yeah,
So-
the public service will report back in some form, whether that's planning or directly or perhaps through the senior manager. But got that.
So we'll get some chance to review that and provide input, which is the main function of this committee, about what we can do on reuse of buildings. So that's all I've got. I do look forward to item number 5, which is talking about building emissions reduction strategy. We need a motion to. Casey, can you move to accept the report of the chairperson? Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Next, if I can get my phone to cooperate. I think Laura, you're next. I think Laura.
Your vice chairperson.
I can perhaps just say a few words. So work continues on our the exercise to update the Winnipeg Climate Action Plan. The project and the consultant team, along with our core working group members, continue to define the details of that project, scope, things of that nature. And we anticipate to be in a position to share some of those preliminary plans in the new year, and that'll include also a plan for public and key stakeholder engagement as that exercise unfolds. I can also advise we're looking at potentially some changes to the city's green building policy for council's consideration. We hope to have those complete for consideration. 6. I can also advise that through the Office of Sustainability, Laura's group, we've submitted 3 funding applications to support a community energy systems feasibility study and to do some climate adaptation planning. And this is all part of the that we're working on. And as the chair had touched on, in our preliminary budget, there's an initial investment of just over 160,000 in the building emission reduction strategy. That's, I would categorize that as a kind of an initial assessment. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about what that involves. It's upgrades to the systems to save some energy in facilities. So that'll conclude my report. I'm happy to dig in.
The 3 requests were made to, the 3 funding requests are made to FCM or the federal government, or to whom?
2 were to FCM, 1 was to efficiency.
And again, the subject matter was
feasibility study for community energy systems, geothermal and the like, as well as a proposal for climate adaptation planning.
Any questions for Matt arising out of that? Go ahead.
Quick question, does that mean that the plan for the climate action plan, is that still on track for being released at the end of 2026? We're still waiting for the consultant to provide the details, but that has been the,
Done by tomorrow. Right.
so we moved from 2026 to 27, just to be clear.
Was it originally 2026?
We were talking about the end of 2026, before the consultant began their work. And it depends on, the consultant might be done their work by the end of 2026, but approvals happen in 2027.
Council has to approve.
That's correct. So more detail to come exactly on how that will unfold.
Yeah. No further questions. I think I skipped over Dawn. So can you move acceptance of that report? You, all those in favor? Now it's Laura's.
Great, thank you. I will share a few highlights from the last 2 months because Kirk has been rather busy. But I'd also like to, since this is the last meeting of 2025, I'd like to provide a bit of an overview of what Kirk has accomplished in their second year of working together. So just a few highlights from my written report. Councillor Mays touched on it already, but the Standing Policy Committee Property and Development motion, promoting adaptive use and preservation of heritage motion. So I have been contacted by the public service and I'm reviewing the established CARC processes and how we can best provide meaningful input and subject matter expertise. So more to come on that as it unfolds. CARC has hosted 2 relationship building and learning events that were well attended and received very positive feedback from participants. The first was a gathering of 5 citizen committees of council. And this was our first opportunity to connect with each other across committees that work on interconnected climate change topics. Participants shared experiences about how their committees work, including priorities, activities, challenges, and opportunities. And committee coordinators are continuing to work together on shared process improvements that we heard at the event so that we can better support our citizen members in carrying out their mandates. The second event that CARC hosted was a climate change communications training. And that was facilitated by ReClimate. I would like to share a bit about the process because it fits into our relationship building and networks, which I think has been a valuable part of our work this year. So thanks to communication with Climate West in August about their prairie climate preparedness training, where they were bringing ReClimate into Winnipeg. The Office of Sustainability reached out to ReClimate to explore the opportunities for additional training sessions while they were in Winnipeg. And those conversations resulted in a contract to host 2 half-day climate change communications training sessions. One, as shared, was hosted by Kirk and invited community leaders to attend. And the other was a half-day session for the public service, where communications teams and interdepartmental leaders participated. So there's some good synergy there. There was a lot of positive feedback from both sessions on the value of the information shared, being able to connect with peers on the topic and apply lessons learned. This training also aligns with the Prairie Climate Center's report recommendations that we received in September. Recommendations 2, 4, and 9 that talk about mainstreaming climate change action into core municipal operations, to provide climate literacy and training for municipal employees. And if lessons learned from the training are applied, there is potential to support increased public awareness and education through communication strategies. So, very positive all around. A few key messages from that training that resonated with me. I just want to mention are that everybody is a climate communicator, whether it's public service, communication specialists, or individuals speaking with their own families. We all play a role. And that facts don't care about your feelings. Facts are critical for analysis, but building a shared understanding of current experiences and challenges through stories can create more space for conversation, connection, and climate action. So thank you to everyone involved in making these events a successful jumping off point for further learning and collaboration. Onto the yearly overview. CARC held 4 public meetings, 1 special meeting, 8 working meetings, and we have another one scheduled in December for strategic planning for 2026. Our work focused on transparency, accountability, communications, and relationship building. CARC developed a subcommittee, working group, and action team guidelines, conducted a public opinion research poll on Winnipeg climate action through Probe Research. Council asked for CARC's advice on the building emissions reduction strategy that we'll hear an update on later. CARC commissioned the Prairie Climate Center to research methods to align actions with climate targets and recommendations to mainstream climate action into municipal systems. CARC continued to build relationships with community organizations, keeping informed about priorities, activities, and opportunities for collaboration. And CARC joined community events and invited community organizations to attend theirs. Completed activities outlined in the work plan that were within their control and were able to use most of the allocated $47,000 budget. So more details will be included in CARC's annual report that will be shared at the first public meeting in 2026. I'd just like to thank everyone around this table for sharing their time, expertise, analysis, and for having patience with the complex systems and topics that we continue to work on together. I'd also like to thank all the Winnipeggers who applied to volunteer through the boards and commissions process that recently closed. So that's a great reminder of the very active and committed professionals and community members who do support climate action basis. So that concludes my report, and I'd love to invite CARC members to reflect on the year and all that we've achieved together. If they should wish to. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, working meetings. Good to see that, so or at least I'm not part of it, so good to know that's going on. Any questions or discussion arising out of that?
It was, I want to say, just really nice to get the ball rolling. I know that first year was just us kind of getting up, getting on our feet, getting rolling and sharing our goals. So it's nice to see that we're producing, that we're getting good things going. And yeah, it's just been a really great year to get on track.
Yeah, I think more councillors are aware of the group, or motions are starting to appear, asking for input, or I think they've all passed so far. I'm not sure of that, or we've had struggles with on the natural gas not getting past the next committee level, but at least this. That's what we need, a motion. Okay, Laura, can you move a motion to accept that report? Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, so we're on to big emotions. This came out of an emotion. The timing is good because we're debating in the, I use draft, but it's what's the word I'm looking for? Preliminary budget. There is some money committed. So this is a topical discussion. So, Mr. Clerk, if you could,
Of course, Mr. Chair. If we could just get a motion for new business. Yes.
all right, Joseph moves that we consider a new business item. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, so that is this item number 5.
Correct. Yes, building emission reduction strategy, and I believe we have Melanie Chatfield from Property Development.
Yep. Welcome. I don't think we'll limit you to any specific time length since we got, this is our, last item on the agenda, so.
Oh, I thought it would be loaded, but I have it separately. Oh, okay. I can go and get my plush drive and check and then it can be shared.
I thought this was coming out of the budget process, but it is in fact an annual update that we are to get. So from a motion from last June.
Oh, okay.
This one is,
Yeah, that's it.
okay. It's always an extra step. Okay, let's go with this. There we go.
Right. All right. So this presentation actually, it shouldn't take too long. And I will say the first few slides are kind of a refresher of the why we built the BERS, the Building Emission Reduction Strategy, and also the direction that it kind of has to head in because of the way that our local climate is, the local economy, et cetera, et cetera. So just to refresh everybody's memories, the BERS was put together to provide a roadmap for reducing emissions in city-owned buildings, and that is through energy efficiency, electrification, and also a bit of renewables. So Winnipeg's emissions challenge, and it's really important to understand this, and that's most of the carbon emissions in Winnipeg buildings are a result of space heating, and that's because of the use of natural gas here. And then the other thing that is really important to understand is that Manitoba has one of the lowest electricity GHG emissions intensity values, and that's due to the majority of our electricity being produced by hydro. Although obviously there's some people that will be aware of the natural gas turbines that are proposed by that Manitoba Hydro, so that might not quite be the case in the future. So the challenge that we have here at the city, because obviously the way to reduce our emissions is through many different ways, but one of the ways is to reduce obviously our natural gas usage. And because of that, we do have some challenges associated with that. So here are the three most important ones. And the first one is obviously the cost. So the cost of natural gas versus the cost of electricity. Now these rates, I just did from a quick calculation of residential rates, but it's basically the same ratio and roughly the same rate for commercial buildings as well. So you can see here that the cost of natural gas is significantly less than electricity. So you can imagine if you're heating a building using electric systems, that is going to cost you a lot more, unfortunately, than to heat them through natural gas. And then the second challenge is to do with the transition from natural gas to electricity. And that's the Manitoba Hydro capacity and distribution. So as you may know already through reports in the newspaper, through the IRP process that they have going on at the moment, is that they don't have enough capacity for the future, although they're certainly trying to build that, but also the local distribution. I think it depends on the area of Winnipeg you're in, but some of those distribution systems are really old. they're really old. And so if you start turning over everything to electricity, then nasty things are going to happen. And then the third challenge, and this is not just unique to our emissions challenge, but that's the city budget and then versus urgent city projects. So of course, the urgent city projects, or what are seen as urgent city projects, are always going to take precedence. If you have a building about to fall down, then that's going to take precedence over electrification potentially. So with the BERS, what we did is we split it into 3 different priorities. So there was a choice of things to pick from, and it wasn't an all or nothing scenario. So our priority number 1 was the building management system upgrades and recommissioning. And so that's upgrading our building management system, which is a Metasys system, which is just the name of it. And to also roll out SkySpark Analytics. And SkySpark Analytics is a program which automatically reads your energy data, and then it formulates that into readable data for a range of different people and different city staff. So then we can make decisions based on that. And then implement recommissioning in priority buildings. Now, the estimated cost to that was 2.25 million, and it was estimated to have 5 to 20% energy savings per building. Priority number 2 was all about energy optimization. And so that was a focus on energy audits, HVAC upgrades, heat pumps, renewables, measurement and verification, and transparency. And that's also was to be supported by Efficiency Manitoba and other funding where possible. And then finally, priority 3, end of life planning, and that is to create a long-term retrofit plan. So trying to be proactive. So that's aligning upgrades with capital renewal. So for instance, if a building needed a new air handling unit, then at the same time, instead of just replacing like for like, we could look into better options at the same time. And then also as part of that, to develop an electrification roadmap and reinvestment strategy. So that was just a refresher on what BERS is all about. So now I'm going to share a few slides that go over what we have done so far and what is in the process. Keep in mind that this was approved by council, I think, back in May, so it's not a full year. But the very first item I wanted to bring up is the potential that we have 163,000 in the 2026 budget. Now, this is a primary budget. It's the preliminary, so it hasn't been approved yet. However, we do see it as good news that it's definitely being considered. So yeah. Now, what would we do with that 163,000 if we did indeed have that as part of the budget? So that is due to go into priority 1 actions, which is all about recommissioning. So the hope is that it will fund building optimization and recommissioning, and that includes fine-tuning controls and schedules at select facilities, such as pools, libraries, and recreation centres. So when I say fine-tuning controls and schedules, that is somebody understanding how the building management systems work, and then if there are any gaps in that, then making sure it is tuned up. So an example of that, for instance, let's say lighting was left on from, I don't know, it's switched on at 5 a.m. till 9 p.m, and yet there's nobody in the building past 6 o'clock. Then the fine tuning would mean that we would adjust those lighting schedules to take off those last 3 hours. And so therefore it would use less energy. So we're not going in and doing major equipment changes, but we are doing some fine tuning of what can be fixed, kind of like the low hanging fruit. So the second thing that we have looked into that was in the BEARS strategy, which was Initiative 3D, is the dedicated energy savings reinvestment plans. Now, again, I will say that this has not been to council yet. We're in the process of putting together a report to take to council. But the idea of having a fund is where we would have a fund to operate as a self-replenishing program. So any money that came from funding such as Efficiency Manitoba or FCM or maybe other programs such as the province would go into a separate fund. And then this fund would pay for energy efficiency and emission reduction projects in city-owned buildings. So it would mean we would have access to some money from funding that was initially meant to go towards energy efficiency and emission reduction. Then the third thing we have done this year is we've actually completed quite a few energy audits, and this was Initiative 2A. So the first thing is we've been accepted for the FCM funding, and that's to complete 8 energy audits for buildings managed by real estate and land development and also municipal accommodations. So we're in the process of signing the contracts for that funding. And then we're also completing 6 energy audits for municipal accommodation buildings, and that includes indoor pools, community centres, and office buildings. And that was done in conjunction with a consultant, and we're on the final review of those. And then also an exciting project where we're actually partnering with Red River College, where 4 of their students are going to be auditing several of our community centres. So the idea behind that is that obviously these centres, they operate obviously on limited budgets and potentially cannot afford consulting services. So the idea is to make this a win-win situation where we would help the students along with their Red River College tutor, but I would also be involved in the training for them to get hands-on experience. And then also it helps the centres because they will get the final report giving them recommendations of what they can do. And that's starting in a couple of weeks where we have our first on-site visit. And then lastly, we have the utility database and dashboard. That's from Initiative 2F under Energy Use Transparency. So that's where I am working with Danny from the Office of Sustainability, where we're producing dashboards that feed directly from the Manitoba hydro bills. And we want to create dashboards that can be used for a range of different people. So that's from people maybe like myself who have the technical background to want lots and lots of details, to facility managers that maybe want a bit of detail but not a whole load, to maybe other members of staff who don't have a technical background at all but kind of want to see what's going on in our municipal buildings. So that is currently underway, and we're working with Manitoba Hydro to kind of hopefully make their billing a little bit more understandable. And that's it. That's the end of my presentation. If anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering if is there a way to make things a little bit broader in terms of actually, you have community centers and it's basically a little bit more open-ended, to actually have some public engagement and to find out, do they need to change things, and are their programs still being accommodated by what you have in terms of the space? Can the space be modified before you go in and sort of make some improvements or suggest improvements to the envelope or whatever? So there's a possibility they may need an addition in the near future. They may just need to reconfigure space or whatever. for.
Uh-huh.
One example was tennis courts being changed to pickleball courts. I mean, that's just a throw.
Uh-huh.
But I'm saying, perhaps, given that you've got a little bit more flexibility, presumably with that one, you could have a little bit more of a understanding of what the needs are of the community centers and how that fits with the actual configurations of the spaces.
Yeah, so when conducting the energy audits, we wouldn't do any public engagement as such, but as part of the on-site visit, we do meet with the staff there because, well, they're the best people to show us around the building. They know all the equipment intimately. So there is an opportunity to discuss with them for any future improvements. And we definitely want to take that into account when we're doing the energy audit. But also it's kind of, we have to be a bit wary as well because these are students. They haven't done energy audits as such before, although they do have the background, what they're doing in their college courses to do it. So I don't want to throw them in the deep end too much, but yeah, we definitely consult with the staff on site. And also this year we're doing 4 community centres and it's 4 students. We see this very much as a pilot project. And so if this is successful, we're hopefully going to roll this out next year as well and maybe include more people and more community centres because we've got, I don't know, off the top of my head, 80 to 90 community centres. So this project could keep going until I retire, for sure.
Had something to do with a puff study a long time ago, but it was something about the community centers.
I guess this is kind of for both of you guys, do you think council has a strong understanding that the emissions reduction also like leads to resilience and like less reliance on like outside natural gas, or do you think they're just looking at it like looking at that first thing, which is like, oh no, we're switching to a more expensive fuel? Like, do you think there's a strong understanding within the final decision makers of the positive implications of these actions?
I'll let Councillor Mays answer this because I don't feel like I should speak for council.
Well, are we really switching though? I mean,
So in some of our projects, or a lot of our projects, especially new construction and major existing building projects, we're promoting the use of dual fuel. And that's really a catch-all phrase of where we're using electric as a first point of heating. However, in the really cold, like months or even days, we use natural gas. So that means we're not converting to all electric, which has 2 challenges of maybe taxing the distribution system, depending on where that project is located. And then also the extra huge bump up in cost straight away. So it's kind of seen as a mid step. So that's what we're trying to encourage just on the electrification side of things. But yeah, then also we want to encourage better building envelopes, better strategic window placement, less of them if possible, et cetera, so that we have a good building or a good base to start from as well.
in terms of the political, I don't know. I mean, I've talked a couple of times about how on Keniston and Chief Peguis we've used, and that's group spend a lot of time on this, doing these cost benefit analysis. And if we're going to take, if there's a benefit for a ton of carbon saved for Keniston, surely that math applies here. But we haven't really, I mean, those have been individual, I mean, and the staff has said, if you know, we concede your point, but we're not rank ordering these 30 projects. We were just asked to look at these 2 projects. So it's ongoing. I mean, would people would get that there's a savings here. That's the main sales pitch that's being put out, but I don't think they'd also get that there's an environmental, that it's better to be heating with electricity than natural gas. I don't think that has resonated in this term of office, I would say. So it's, yeah, I mean, I'll have questions myself, but yeah, I think that's an honest answer.
Well, except the thing. I guess I should ask permission to speak.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Uh, my understanding is it's a lot less efficient to run a gas turbine to produce electricity than it is to have a high efficiency gas furnace in your house.
Yes. Yeah,
So I just want to
it certainly
clarify that.
is.
So, I mean.
Yeah, fair point.
I ran into this problem in 1983 when we did a study for CMHC. And one of the key things they asked is, we want to demonstrate that it's more cost efficient to sort of do modifications to a house and use, basically non-carbon sort of sources of energy. But you have to demonstrate that it's going to be something that will pay back the homeowner. Well, it didn't. Of course, they didn't publish their study for 2 years until the oil prices changed, and it was the same thing. It was like electricity versus natural gas. And they were taking the electricity costs and seeing how efficient it is to do all these things, modifying envelopes to, well, yeah, but you're using this price instead of that price. And so we couldn't demonstrate that there was a real cost benefit in the time of the typical person living in a house.
And it's really important to look at things holistically.
Right. And
for sure.
It's the main issue.
Yeah.
Like that. But we don't have, like, if you're going to use gas turbines, maybe it's better to have people use efficient furnaces.
I would say you're right, but again, looking at the bigger picture, that is also why maybe going dual fuel for the medium term is possibly the best strategy, because you're not knocked on the head with a massive increase in prices. You're still going towards electrification and setting yourself up in the future for electrification, because if you put in natural gas boilers, let's say you have a heat pump system as your primary source of heating and you have a natural gas boiler as a supplement, it's still on a water loop, and then in the future all you have to do is then pop in an electrical boiler, and then it's all electrified. So the idea is not just to go to dual fuel, not just to do like change out a heating coil from natural gas to electric, but look at everything and just set yourselves up for the future so that when we can electrify the whole building, it's basically it's a plug and play, and we're not spending millions of dollars when we don't have to.
Yeah, I'm glad you used heat pumps because you didn't have much cost for cooling. But I'm suspecting that is going to go up quite a bit in the future. So at least the heat pump would be able to provide both
Yes.
seasons in terms of.
Yes, it does for sure.
Like, I mean, this isn't formally a budget session.
Yeah, you're right, sorry.
I guess it's a glass half full, half empty. I mean, when we started this term, we were talking about a $50 million plan to do some retrofits, and then that got fed through this. I mean, we had that community energy investment roadmap, which called for huge investments. Then that sort of came down to, I mean, there are a number of numbers in this in the building energy reduction. I mean, I remembered it as 30 million, and it's actually probably a little more than that. And then there's some operating costs, but I mean, at this 163, we're not hiring more staff with that. Personally, this is all just it's control. We're not retrofitting anything. We're just doing controls here.
Yes, with this particular budget spend is towards controls.
Okay. And you said you were doing 8 audits with FCM money and another 6, but was that exterior funding, or that's?
No, it was partially exterior funding from Efficiency Manitoba. However, we did cover the rest of it.
Okay. All right, jumped in. Good. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know what this, I'm not sure if you know as much about this, but the selection criteria for those buildings for energy audits and for the burst strategy. I understand that energy has probably went into it a lot and probably age as well, but what other characteristics went into selecting those buildings?
So it's a bit of a combination. First of all, they were typically the buildings that used the most energy and had the most emissions. But also they're the buildings where perhaps we know major equipment upgrades are needed. For instance, air handling unit replacement or boiler replacement. So when we're doing an energy audit, it becomes valuable because if those buildings do get funding in the future, then they have a ready-made report there saying, well, if you've got to replace this piece of equipment, you can do so with this, and this is how much it costs. So,
And then is there some kind of tracking in place to keep going with like a future list of buildings that need to be expanded on and added to the list, or?
yeah, I mean, within the BEARS itself, there is, especially within priority 2, there is a whole list of buildings that have projects. And how we put that list together is very much focused on buildings where we know that things need to be done anyway. So yeah, we always try to keep that in the back of our minds. Yeah.
I'm looking at your list of buildings to be retrofit in the original strategy, and I'm just wondering if those costs are put someplace else. Or if, because obviously none of these are really, or these wouldn't be included in the $160 something. So is that just hidden someplace else in the budget, or are these buildings just kind of gonna sit and wait for the attention that they need?
So was that under priority 1 or priority 2?
So it's just under the list of, I'm just looking at the report from last time.
Okay.
And it's like, it says get more information from Appendix A, but we only have the report here.
I have a feeling that might be priority 2, which is quite a few major upgrades. So yeah, at the moment, I don't know the details, but as far as energy efficiency and emission reduction, they're not included in the budget.
And so has any kind of analysis been done on the costs of delaying action on some of these buildings?
No, not by me, no.
We did do that study a few years ago that hinged on what's the carbon tax payable, but then the carbon tax, the
Yeah,
base
It's
of
gone.
the study kind of blew up on us with
Uh-huh.
government policy change. So the math was left uncertain, I guess.
yeah.
My other question is, going to priority 1, the BMS upgrade, has there been a payback period assessment done for that? So I see that it's quite a lot of money to do it, 2.5 million, but it also comes with 5 to 20% savings per building. So do we understand what the payback period of a big spend like that would be?
I can't remember the exact figures, but I think I put it building by building. And so where the budgets come in is that I think the buildings that were chosen were done on the best paybacks, because that's what we're starting with. So yeah, they have used that for sure when deciding what amount of money to put in the budget for that.
And I don't know if we have, I mean, we have 3 different terms here. Preliminary budget in front of me. So the buildings are Pan Am Pool, Cindy Klassen, Elmwood Kildonan Pool, Seven Oaks Pool, and Sergeant Tommy Prince Place.
Yes. And there are a few more as well, which I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, there are a few buildings, which is why we're aiming for a fine tune-up of the existing equipment rather than any major equipment upgrades.
Those buildings that you mentioned, those are all top priorities.
Yes, they are. Yeah, absolutely.
The idea was to kind of get the biggest bang for the buck within the limited amount of money we spent.
So priority 1 in terms of
Priority 1 within the priority 1 ranking in the original report. I
Okay.
think it was on page.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly, but yes. It was the highest priority buildings within priority.
Okay.
one.
Within the priority, within the P1s within the P1.
PB1, okay.
Yes.
And that works, I mean, it's part of our 6-year capital plan, but it's all loaded into the first year, is the good news.
I mean, I'm hoping that we would get more budget in other years to cover it all, but yeah, I'm happy with what we got.
Your initial budget though, it said, one of the items was, it said health and life safety emergency systems and so on. Like, isn't that a really high level priority if there's 2.66 million that was allocated to it approximately?
Whereabouts are you referencing?
I feel like you were showing, a budget page that,
Yeah.
The capital there.
Yeah, because I just highlighted where our line was, so maybe are you reading?
back,
Or-
Yeah,
Yeah,
if I may, Mr. Chair, that's a different budget line.
But I'm saying, has that been adopted or?
No, this is all, what you're looking at there is the preliminary budget, so that has to be reviewed and more on it.
Oh, you need some of those life safety.
Yeah, what are we looking at?
Yeah, but that's not part of
It's a
the
that's a
bears.
different
Oh,
capital.
It's it's
oh, so it's just the red.
it's just that, it's just the
Okay.
line.
Just looking at
underneath
under
is
the
what
whole
I'm
thing.
What you're looking at.
Yeah, I can see now, it's basically our capital projects and the one that was highlighted, it's yours, I guess, yeah.
So
Should be worried there.
should we be nervous that that's a blank spot in the 5-year forecast?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, seen in one, well, well, at least at least it's got its page now and you can build on it from there, but sometimes these pages, they vanish, the work gets done and they, roll out, but usually that's seen as a one that we have to fix the Valley Gardens Community Center site, so we load that in for 26 and it doesn't appear in the 27 book, whereas you want this to keep appearing, of course. So fair question. Yes, I think that's and people are free to, I get this, we just had this discussion at the water committee pre-meet with that. This is not coming to the environment committee. This, if people want to speak to this, they can go to the executive policy committee or they can go to the planning committee budget deliberations, right? I don't, it shouldn't be coming to water, waste, environment. That's on the new budget item. Everything else
I believe this section of the budget will be discussed at the property.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you. Hopefully more on this in the years to come. It's a foot in the door at least and
Yep.
getting going on some of these things that obviously we'd like more based on what was in that strategy. So, any further comments, questions arising out of that? If not, okay, thank you. Do we need to receive that? As information, that you want to move that? I think you're.
Sure, I can make that motion on the filter.
Okay, that's moved, thank you. It's Jeff. Okay, so moved by Matt, all those in favor, receive that as information, thank you. Let's see anyone.
That'll conclude the agenda, Mr. Chair.
Okay, do we need a motion to adjourn then? All right. I gotta streamline this. So Lisa moves a motion to adjourn. Thanks everyone for coming. And next meeting, I think we have the adaptive reuse discussion, I think, or maybe that's another meeting. Okay, good, thank you. So, all right, so motion to adjourn, all those in favor, thank you, and thanks to the city clerks.